Hey there, hope you're doing well. Welcome to Snowpal's Polyglot Software Development Podcast. This particular one is not going to be a technical podcast. At least I don't expect for it to be. We'll see how it goes. It's been a while since I've done podcast. I think it's maybe a few months already. I had a collaborative podcast, yesterday, and we had to publish it. So watch out for a new one shortly. But that apart, I have actually not done one in a while. The last few months we've been working on a number of different things, atypical things, I should say. Not, business as usual for us would be building new apps, new solutions, new services, new features, etc. But the last 3 months or so has been, focus on certain other aspects, of what we are starting out to do in the coming months. For starters, just been also looking a little bit more than a bit, but not a whole lot, not as much as I would have liked to, but still a fair bit on generative AI and then what's happening in that world, how we could actually leverage a lot of that into our next API, for instance. We're just getting started with building the next API. So it's look out for it. It's going to take just a little bit of time before we can get the first version of it out. For now, we already have a number of APIs published. It's on multiple API hubs, including but certainly not limited to AWS Marketplace. So you can go to aws.snowpal.com to check out our current published APIs. Now, again, back to the podcast and what I want to share. So the last few months has been outside of the typical normal, because looking at what else is out there, how we could start building our next solutions very differently from how we have done in the past, just given where the engineering world is headed, so to speak. So there's not personally me. I've not been coding anywhere near what I usually do. It's the least I've done in a long time in the last 3 months. Not just development per se. That's looking at other tools, other solutions, doing some prototyping. Sure, we've been doing that, but that's not that doesn't help us add more to what we already have out there in production, right? It's not new features or enhancements. I mean, we've done some bug fixes, but that's basically it. And what that means, what I want to share here is, that's one, just keep that in mind. And then we also have podcasts that we publish, we create course content, we collaborate with other course creators to provide a platform for them to publish their courses. So a number of different things make up our ecosystem, as you probably know if you follow our company. If you don't, definitely consider doing so on LinkedIn and other places. You can start with products.snowpal.com and just go from there. That's like the central repository or a starting point for just about everything that we do. Now, given that, not been doing the norm, the typical stuff that we've almost always do, I just want to share my experience on how sometimes you get a bit rusty, right? And this happens to everybody, I hope, and I'm pretty sure, and probably this resonates with you. But I just want to take this time, just getting back to the realm of things, podcasting, and then sharing some of this direct experience. Let's start out with a very simple thing, doing a podcast. Now, we've done hundreds of these solo and collaborative podcasts. So if, the weeks and months where we've done a fair number of these, it actually takes almost no time to get going. We have a process for people to sign up if we are doing a collaborative podcast. They sign up, complete a form. It's pretty seamless. We get on a call and hit record, and there's really no prep work. Almost all the podcasts are impromptu, including the technical podcast. But now when you give it a gap, even if it's only 3 months, that's a long time, 90 days or so, you're not sure where to go. How do we record these podcasts? How do we publish them? What is the actual process? We have all of this documented, so don't get me wrong there. But even with that said, your fingers move a little bit slower. You're not sure how to create these assets, the image assets, the video assets to publish it. How do you edit them? Do you post it? Do you publish it on, say, products? Like, let me actually create a, I'm going to go to my new window here. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So hopefully, yep, you can see my screen here. So this is where we go to, this is our starting point, products.snowball.com. We have all of our podcasts here. We need to go publish. There is a certain process we follow. We create transcripts, have a template for this layout, add the images, the links, yada, 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 and boom, we publish it. Now, when we do it consistently, this is a pretty seamless process. It takes us almost, the least amount of time possible. But then now that we haven't done it for a few months, I can tell you that it actually takes time for us to understand or, jog our memories on what is it that we need to do, what are all the 10 things that we do, despite the documentation that we do have laid out pretty clearly as to how to get this done. So the short of it is, back to this window here, if you don't do something consistently enough, it's going to take longer. And I'm going to give you more examples here, and these are not fabricated or concocted examples. These are just real examples. I'm dishing them out as they are. We had to do, we worked on, making a couple of bug fixes on our mobile app like a week or couple of weeks back, and it's already published, approved by on the app and Play stores. So certainly you can download the latest version. But going through the process of, fixing a bug on Dart, on Flutter, as an engineering team that works across multiple stacks, we work, our API as are built on Ruby, on Golang. So there's TypeScript very much in the mix as well, as to how, it serves as an intermediary component that receives a request and then propagates a request to multiple API backend servers, be it Ruby or be it Golang servers. So there's a number of languages involved there. Our mobile app is built on Flutter. So that's, we use Flutter and Dart. Our web app runs on, JavaScript. We don't use TypeScript, not yet. So it's heavily JavaScript with some Rails. And then it delegates a request to the backend systems, right? So, and a number of different UI / UX frameworks that if you go to snowpal.com, that's what that stack uses. Now, again, this is just a high level. There's a number of other things we do as well, or the stack comprises of a number of other things. But the short of it is it's a number of different languages and frameworks. So when you're working on, say, actively developing features on the mobile app, then it's it's business as usual again. You're used to the Flutter syntax, what to do to either add a feature or fix a bug, and then go through the pipeline to publish it to the app and Play stores. But now if you haven't done it for 3 months, Flutter seems suddenly like a brand new language, right? That feels like a brand new language, and Flutter feels like a brand new framework. Because one of the most recent things we did, we updated the dependencies. And if you go through your pubspec.yaml and update dependencies, either across the board or cherry pick certain dependencies to update, you know that it's anything but a seamless process. And if you have to upgrade Flutter as well, Flutter is a lovely framework, but backward compatibility is probably not one of their forte. At least tell me if you think otherwise. So hell breaks loose almost every time you have to do these updates. The most recent update, we upgraded Flutter and actually updated almost all the dependencies that we have, on our PubSpec. So it was pretty, I don't want to say nightmarish, but you get the idea. But the thing I'm not exactly certain is, because it's almost always like that when you do the Flutter upgrades. The last one took a little bit longer for us as a team, perhaps not only because it's Flutter and just the way Flutter and its nuances and how it has support for backward compatibility or lack thereof. It's probably also because we haven't done active coding on that particular framework in the last 3 months. So again, your syntax, your fingers when you start typing, despite Copilot and everything else that you can have, expect to have support for from an generative AI standpoint in 2024. I don't think there's yet a substitute for human thinking, at least not yet. We haven't seen it, at least. So you have to think at the same levels that you've generally been thinking, despite the help. That additional piece of help helps you move things a bit faster, but it's certainly not a substitute. Not as I'm recording this podcast, not at this point of time. So I'm not sure whether it's because you get a little bit rusty that it takes longer. I'm not. Maybe most likely I want to say. Because, again, some other, was it some Lambda changes we made on AWS? or I'm forgetting, or perhaps some API changes on Golang. Even that took a little bit longer than usual. And I probably did a podcast when after we published the most recent API. It was the latter part of last year, where we want to challenge ourselves to see how fast we could actually build a brand new API from scratch, ground up, all the way through. The idea, the inception of the thought, through building it, implementing it, and deploying it, and making it available, all the way up until publishing the Golang SDK. Right? We haven't actually. We're close to publishing the SDK for the most recent, the eighth API. The work is mostly complete. We're just going through a full PR review process, and expect that quite in the near future. But the whole thing took all to took the most recent API was the access control API. It is a pretty complex API. It's got a lot of nuances, but we did that in real quick time. It's because we were actively working on building Golang APIs. Now that that's not what we've been doing in the last 3 months. Even making bug fixes on our Go APIs is taking a bit longer. So I think I've made the point here. I've given you a number of different examples. Even for a team that's does this day in and day out, for forever, right? We've been working on building software forever. When you actually lose touch, even for 3 months, it's actually a pretty painful and laborious process. So what it means is, as we're getting back into the groove of just business as usual building software, we realize that you can sort of take a break, not a break like going on vacation. Take a break to get a feel for what else is going on out there. How are other people building software today? How has Copilot, GitHub Copilot changed things? Or even ChatGPT and Microsoft's Copilot, which we don't use a whole lot. The most we use is actually the GitHub Copilot. Even with assistance from those tools, how we want to explore it to see how things have generally changed out there. So that is basically the distraction the last 3 months. And even recording this podcast, the solo podcast, after 3 months, it took a bit of time to hit the record button. Something that was a very natural thing, like, hey, you know what, just get your machine, whether it's a desktop or a laptop, go to the tool, hit record and start recording, was not necessarily as easy this time. So the last 12 minutes has taken an effort, an immense effort, right? And again, back to, I haven't even caught up on LinkedIn. It's been like 3 months. There's been a lot of messages pending, requests pending. So, we're just getting back, as we get into fall, we're getting back to business as usual now that we are off of summer. But I just want to share this experience with you. So this is for someone who's been building software for decades. Now, if you're new, you're getting out of college, or maybe you're switching careers from a different industry to building software, or you've taken a break of some kind, much like myself, be prepared to be a bit rusty. And then you have to find out what your comfort zone is, what your sweet spot is. How long can you take a break from your typical routine before you start, feeling uncomfortable that, you're kind of losing touch with how things are. I know some people can go on a sabbatical for like a year and come back and pick up from where they left off the first day, as though they've actually been working without a break. For some others, in this case, for me, been doing a number of other things Snowpal related, but not the usual things that we do. And that has actually made things a bit interesting. So I want to kick off getting back to the routine of some sort, at least to a large extent, with this podcast, which is again a completely non-technical podcast. Even it's 14 minutes, but it feels like it's 400 minutes. It's just because I was trying to share some of these things. I didn't usually, do some code sharing or screen sharing, draw some diagrams. We haven't done any of that in this podcast. But I'm sort of welcoming myself back, if you will, into the groove of things. But expect to see more. We have a lot of, collaborative podcasts lined up in the next few weeks or a month. I think I have to go check my calendar. But nice to be here. Be prepared for, a lot more technical podcast, solo podcast, because we've been playing with a few different tools like VV8, for instance, for vector databases, just getting my feet wet as an individual and even as a team to see if what kind of role that's going to play. If we are a heavy Mongo shop, and Mongo has support vector databases, but I don't know how organic that is compared to some other solutions out there. So we've been sort of exploring that, and VV8 is actually one of them that been looking at in the recent weeks or so. Uh, I think that's essentially it. I want to just say hello. Just say that keep in touch with yourself and with what you're doing. Otherwise, it's going to take you a week, maybe more, to just get acclimated to stuff that you yourself have actually been doing. Because I was trying to fix a bug on Flutter the other day. I was like, okay, who wrote this code? Is it our code? Is it somebody else's code? And then I realized, you know what? I wrote this 4 months ago, right? Actually, that particular change, I had worked on it like 4 months ago, but it looked like it was not even me. When I had to do the git blame to even find out that, just assure myself that, no, Krish, it's actually you had written the code originally, so it was not somebody else in the team. I think that's about it. Well, hope you had a good summer, and you're raring to go as much as we are as we get into fall, right? Thanks, and talk to you soon.